So to make the chocolate log, first of all have the tin prepared ready. So grease around the sides of a Swiss roll tin and a little bit on the base, and line that with greaseproof paper. We're then going to whisk the eggs and sugar together until they're really thick and creamy. And that's going to take a good 5 minutes on high speed. When it's been whisking for about 5 minutes, it should be ready. You can tell when it's ready when you do the ribbon test, which is if you lift some of the mixture up and make a trail, the trail sits on top, it doesn't sink into the rest of the mixture, and then you know it's ready. Now we sieve in the flour and cocoa powder. And we also add the tablespoon of cold water. And then we mix using a folding action so as not to knock out all the air. So it's almost like a figure of 8, but as well as doing it in one level, we have to do it underneath as well, so that we're actually doing it in both directions. You can see there's still some dry mixture in the middle. I need to continue a little bit longer. But as soon as the dry mixture's incorporated, we stop. I think we're about there. Okay, now goes into our prepared tin. And then spread it out as gently as we can so as not to knock out any air bubbles. Remember, this is plain flour that we're using, so the only raising agent is the air that we've whipped into it. And that goes into a preheated oven for approximately 12 minutes. Okay, the sponge is done when it springs back when touched and doesn't leave an imprint of your finger. So that one's ready. If you overcook it, it will crack when you try to roll it. Take it from the oven and turn it straight onto a piece of greaseproof that you sprinkled with caster sugar. Carefully unpeel the greaseproof from the sides first. And then it should just peel easily off the sponge. Okay, then we're going to roll the greaseproof up with the sponge around it. So roll it not too tight. We are going to undo it and put the cream in. So we don't want it really tight, just a loose roll with the greaseproof, and then we're going to sit it on a cooling wire, preferably sitting on the seam of the sponge as it rests, and we're going to let it completely cool. Okay, so when it's completely cool, and that's probably going to take about an hour, we're going to carefully unroll it. And don't try to force it completely flat, because it is obviously going to be rolled back up again. So just, and don't worry if it cracks a little bit. I'm going to put the cream in, so I'm using buttercream. So I've made sure the buttercream is nice and soft. Just pop it in the microwave for a couple of seconds if it's a bit hard, so that it's easy to sort of tuck into that central curl without forcing it completely flat. You can of course use fresh cream. You could put some chopped fruit in here as well at this stage. Just spread it evenly with the knife then. And then we're going to gently roll it back up. You can use the greaseproof to just put some pressure across the whole Swiss roll. So I'm doing it fairly tightly this time, so that when we slice it, it doesn't all fall apart. Just take off any excess sugar. Now I'm actually going to pop this in the fridge for an hour, just to let that buttercream firm up a bit before we go on to the next stage. Okay, when the chocolate log's been in the fridge for about an hour, we can trim off the ends. Makes it easier to coat and much neater. And obviously you can eat these bits that you trim off. Same on the other side. Make up the fudge icing fairly thick so that we can spread it onto the cake rather than pour it. So if you just melt the butter and water together in the pan and then add the cocoa and icing sugar, and just add enough icing sugar to get it to this sort of thick spreadable consistency. Do the ends of the log first. And it does set very quickly, this fudge, so I always have a jug of boiling water handy. If it thickens up a bit, I can just add a little bit of water to correct it. Before it sets, if you want to make a pattern like a log centre, do that now while the icing's still wet. We then can coat the whole of the cake, and to do this we just put the fudge icing on the top. And you do have to work fairly quickly with this icing before it starts to set, and just work it down the sides of the cake. And it doesn't need to be smooth. It wouldn't be on a log, would it? It would be rough and uneven. Okay, and then if you want to, you can make some little patterns, some little knots in the wood. And as I say, you have to do this fairly quickly before the icing starts to set, just to give a log effect. And to finish it off, we can put some little decorations on, a bit of holly, berries, or anything that you might have that you may have used on a cake previously. Oops. And just to finish off, we'll have a little bit of snow. And there's your chocolate log.